Hello, everybody. We know it is officially figure skating season when we have PJ Kwong here. And I am Jacqueline Dory, and today we are going to talk figure skating, Grand-Prix, the first one of the season to be more specific. But how are you, PJ? How have you been?
I am so excited to be back, all skating all the time. That's my middle name.
Yes, and I mean, we have so much to talk about.
Yep.
The Rostelecom Cup this weekend, and also the return of Road to the Olympic Games, CBC Sports television show, which will be airing the Grand Prix. So lots of things happening. We're going to do a preview today. That's what we're going to talk about. Talk a little bit about what's happened in the season so far, which hasn't been much, but still, we got to talk about the Autumn Classic, right?
Autumn Classic for sure happened last month in September. In a way, it's an event that doesn't mean anything and means everything.
Gives us a nice little preview anyway as to what will happen in Russia.
A little soupçon, which is what I like to say because it was in Montreal.
Lovely.
First of all, Yuzuru Hanyu, who is competing at the Rostelecom Cup, posted a world record score in a short program. Then sort of fell apart a little bit in the free. Javier Fernandez ultimately won the event. Yuzuru Hanyu was uncharacteristically missed jumps, seemed to be off. I will tell you, his Seimei program is from season before last. Shailin Bourne did the choreography. It's a sort of a traditional Japanese story from a movie. It is one of my all-time favorite programs. Honestly, it is Olympic worthy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do in Moscow. I spoke to Brian Orser, his coach, just last week, and said to him, so what are the goals? And he said, well, it would be nice for Yuzuru to win there. Yup. So I felt that was really kind of an interesting comment. And Jeffrey Buttle did the rework of the short program that he first choreographed 2 years ago. So you know what? Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer also at Autumn Classic. They are to die for, skating to Moulin Rouge for their free dance. I love them.
Yes, that was a good pick, I felt. That one made me excited when I heard that.
She's even more Nicole Kidman than Nicole Kidman.
Oh my goodness.
Don't you think?
Oh. So good.
Her.
So good.
But let's talk about Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier, who are making their trip to Russia, to Moscow, to this Rostelecom Cup. You have got to just sit down, have a cup of tea, and really pay attention to their free dance. It is just the most cool concept. It's Perry Mason-esque, which is an old-style gumshoe kind of detective story. He's a little bit clueless in a way, sort of like all the brawn, and she is very much femme fatale. I love this free dance. It is just spectacular.
They always have fun.
Oh.
They always have so much fun. Between their costume or between their storyline, they always it's very apparent. You know, sometimes, I mean, you follow the story, but you always know what the story is with Piper and Paul.
You absolutely do. And their short dance as well is sensational. I mean, all the ice dancers in Canada, I think, are really going to rock it this year for sure.
Definitely. So for anyone just joining now, my name is Jacqueline. We're with PJ Kwong here today, talking about the first Grand Prix of the season, Rostelecom Cup, happening in Moscow, Russia this weekend. We were just talking a little bit about the Autumn Classic, but if you guys have any questions for PJ or if you have any comments, put them in the comment section on this Facebook Live. I'll be checking throughout, so if I'm on my phone, I'm not being rude. I'm just wanting to see if you guys want to connect with us. So we'll be watching for you, okay? So also at the Autumn Classic, Nam Nguyen, who is also competing in Russia this coming weekend, 5th place finish for him.
So not his best performances.
No.
Now, he's somebody I saw in the summer at the Summer Free Skating Competition in Thornhill. He has a short program to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I absolutely am in love with this short program. I also think that the changes that he made as far as going to new coaches, Tracy Wayman and Gregor Filipowski, have worked out very well for him. He is very settled. He is somebody who knows what he has to do. So he needs to come out with all guns blazing in Moscow to really demonstrate that he is the guy that we saw as high as 5th in the world, that we saw as junior world champion, as Canadian champion. So Nam Nguyen, watch out for him.
No, yes, because he's been moving around a lot. He is back in Ontario now, but he was in San Francisco a season ago. And before that, he was in Toronto. So you think he's settled now? He has to be, right? I mean, it's go time. The Olympics are just months away.
Well, he actually made the change to Tracy and Gregor in Richmond Hill in January of last year, December of last year, just before Nationals. So he was in California only very briefly, decided to come back home. And I think that for a skater like him, he needs a little bit of time to get settled, but he has so much talent and so much potential that I can't wait to see what he's going to do.
2 other skaters who skated in Montreal and who we'll be seeing in Moscow, Julien Séguin and Charlie Bilodeau. pair skaters.
That's all I'm going to say about them. That isn't all I'm going to say about them because it's Facebook Live. I have to talk.
If only we could just pat our hearts every time and everyone would know what we're talking about. But, I mean, I do know what you're saying, but please expand because they really are, I mean, they're the up and coming.
They are definitely the up and coming. I've talked about them for certainly a couple of seasons for sure. They were world junior silver medalists is the way that I would put it. And they have so much personality. They have so much talent. They were plagued. Now, they won this event last year in Russia. So they're going back. This is really their first, I mean, in my mind, this first Grand Prix event is very significant for them. They would like to be on that Olympic team. The competition for pairs in Canada has never been more strong. They've got great, as I said, great personality on the ice, wonderful talent. If it's not this go around, it will surely be soon because they are just too talented to be ignored. They had some definite problems starting at the end of 2016.
I was going to say.
So for them, they missed a lot of time. But when I saw them at the high performance camp, had a moment to talk with Charlie, he said that they're feeling well, and that's what Julianne echoed, that she's just back on track. So fingers crossed for them.
Good, good, good. So we're getting some comments here. I just want to say hello to everyone. Susan Crosby was wondering about Gracie Gold and the implications of her pulling out of competition for being in the season. We're going to touch on that a little bit later, but great question, Susan. We're on the same page here. And, oh my goodness, look at everyone so happy to see you. Elizabeth's happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you too, Elizabeth. Skating's
amazing.
Back.
Keep these comments coming. Keep your questions coming. Let's talk a little bit now about how our Canadians will do, or what we know about what our Canadians will do in Moscow this weekend. So let's start with whoever you like, PJ.
So
who would you like to start with?
If we're talking about Canadians,
start with
I want to tell you something really kind of cool. Nam Nguyen, Piper Gale St. Paul Poirier have both medaled at this event with bronze medals. So I'm really hopeful that getting their material out and getting it out strongly, that might do something as far as the results are concerned for them being on the podium. In the men's event, I mean, it's some pretty high-spirited competition.
Mr. Hanyu?
Yeah, Mr. Hanyu is there. So I think that he's there, and Nathan Chen from the United States, who I think is a real dark horse for the Olympic Games. I mean, Nathan Chen, with his arsenal of quads, he could very much be in contention for a podium finish, if not the top spot. So this is going to be a very tight field for anybody to really get out on top. I think it's Yuzuru Hanyu's to lose. So, but it's very early in the season. So, who knows? Nam may come home with another medal, which would be wonderful for him.
What would he have to do in Moscow that he didn't do in Montreal to get on that podium?
Skate well.
That's it, eh? It was just execution in Montreal?
You have to do everything that you know how to do. So there can't be any mistakes. When the competition in men for the men's podiums, pick a competition, is as tight as it is, it's because all of those guys just can skate lights out. First of all, they have great material, great choreography, and also these technical elements that are just we couldn't have thought of, a few years ago. So if you want on the podium, you have to skate unbelievably well in the short, set up your position for the free, and then follow it up with a solid free.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to ice dance. Because in addition to Piper and Paul, there will be Americans Maya and Alex Shibutani. So stiff competition for Piper and Paul as well.
Well, and Maya and Alex, they sat out 4 seasons between winning their very first world medal, which I think was 2011, and then it was 4 long seasons before they got back on the podium, even 2 8th-place finishes at Worlds. I really appreciate the tenacity of this team. I appreciate their talent, their tidy feet, and I think that they're back to some amazing material this year. So if you want to be in on ice dance, take a page out of Maya and Alex's book and just stick with it and then skate really well. But truly, Piper and Paul's free dance, watch it.
In terms of pairs,
Yeah.
internationally, who should we watch out for?
Well, I think that the pair event in Russia is going to be particularly interesting because we have Yevgenia Tarasova and Vladimir Morozov. They were on the podium at Worlds. I think that they are going to be, as bronze medalists, I think that they are definite contenders for a spot on the Olympic podium. I'm not crazy about their material this year. They're skating their free program to Candyman, Christina Aguilera, or the other one that sings really loud that's blonde. One of those.
Christina
Anyway,
Aguilera.
I think so. Uh, who is the other one? Doesn't matter. Anyway.
Well, I mean, we got Britney, but I don't think anyone's skating to Britney.
Her, it was another one. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
That's
so
okay.
here's the thing. I watched it
why
on
don't you
YouTube.
love it?
I love the music. This is a team that gives me everything, gives me goosebumps as far as that traditional sort of Russian style, that elegance, that just...
Je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
I would say it in Russian, but I don't know how.
I do, but I'm not going to say it.
Impressive. I should have known you would know how to say it.
But the thing is with Yevgenia and Vladimir, they just have this elegance. This. So when you put them with something sort of snappy and kind of cutesy, I'm not sure that it's them.
Okay.
So I love the costume. I love the skating. So who am I to say anything?
Do you think it's a common opinion, or do you think it might just be a personal one for you?
I don't talk to anybody, so the opinions are strictly my own, and nobody talks to me either.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
Now Fedor, Stolbova and Klimov, there we go. They've got new material again this year, and they, of course, were on the Olympic podium in 2014 and have really struggled since. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do. I kind of see it as a 1-2 between those two teams. I think that Julianne Siga and Charlie Bilodeau can definitely bring up the rear in the pairs. So fingers crossed.
Good.
Good skating.
And now the women's competition. Carolina Koster will be there as well.
Another one of those.
As well. 2 times ladies world champion.
Yevgenia Medvedeva.
There we go.
My favorite name to say.
Mine too.
Carolina Kostner, former world champion,
Yes.
European champion a couple of times. I don't think there is anybody who skates today where everybody comes to a standstill to watch her.
Wow.
I mean, the brilliant choreography from Lori Nickel. There isn't a program that Carolina has ever done that I haven't gone, wow, I don't know how she's going to do better than that one. So
And she continually
just
brings it up.
Absolutely. So that said, she's well known to be inconsistent in competition. Typically, she battles with nerves, and it's too bad because her talent is second to none. On the flip side, Yevgenia has not lost a competition since the Rostelecom Cup 2 years ago in 2015.
Wow.
So that includes 2 Grand-Prix finals, that includes a junior world title, that includes 2 back-to-back world titles, as well as, I must mention, the junior world title was then back-to-backed, is that a verb? With a senior world title.
It is in this Facebook Live.
Almost never happens that you go from junior champion to senior champion, 12 months later. So she is a consistent... She is a machine. I mean, honestly, she knows what she has to do to get the points. I think that she has this sort of ingenue, sweet, charming quality, but she does not back off on the ice. She is amazing. So, and just a delightful person off the ice. I've spoken to her a few times. So I think it's hers to lose here.
Right.
I really do.
And you mentioned the other day that you think she could very easily be the Olympic champion.
She's my early pick for Olympic champion, for sure. Yep.
Definitely. But you also said something that I liked to hear, that Caitlin Osmond could also technically be the Olympic champion too.
Not just technically, and Gabrielle Dalman. I mean, so the Canadians.
2
Caitlin
Canadians
Osmond.
giving us a run in ladies singles.
know.
A couple years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, we wouldn't have said that.
No,
We didn't even know we'd have 2 on the world champion podium.
Listen, for 100 years we haven't said it because it's the first time it's ever happened that 2 Canadian women have been on the world podium.
Right.
So that part was just a thrill, and to be in the building for that particular event was just sort of
How was
mind-blowing.
that?
Oh, are you kidding me? And the thing that was so wonderful about that competition, it doesn't always happen this way. All of the women really skated. So it wasn't a question of
Gotcha.
I got my silver because somebody else screwed up and didn't go for it. Everybody, pulled out all the stops. So Caitlin Osmond, I could absolutely imagine a world where she could be Olympic champion. I could also imagine a world where Gabrielle Dalman could also be, if not Olympic champion, then on the Olympic podium. Canada is sending its strongest team to the Olympic Games ever. Full stop. There, you heard it here first.
There you go. You heard it here first. And we have it in online writing, so we can come back a couple months from now and say, PJ, you're so good.
Or you're so wrong. But either way.
Either
that's
way.
what I really believe.
Good. All right, so then let's take this moment to move forward then. Do a little bit of a preview of the season. And since we're talking about Caitlin Osmond and talking about the Olympic podium in the singles ladies competition, let's just mention the fact Gracie Gold just pulled out of competition. That changes things a little bit in terms of the scope for women like Caitlin, women like Yevgenia.
Well, Gracie Gold, first of all, I want to totally take my hat off to her. She
Right.
took some time off to deal with some health issues, and she is somebody who is really taking the time that she needs in order to become well. So anybody who selflessly knows that they need a bit of a break to sort of get themselves back on track, I fully applaud and fully support. So Gracie Gold, we're sending you love here from Canada, and fully expect to see you back on the ice in your absolute best self, because she is a contender.
So we know that this is good news for Gracie Gold in the long
good
run.
news for everybody.
But Susan Crosby's wondering, what are the implications for others now that Gracie's pulled out?
Well, it's so hard, and that's a great question. It's so hard in the Grand Prix season to sort of know who's going to do what. So I remember a few years ago when Caitlin Osmond was replaced somebody in at Skate Canada, and then next thing you know, she won it. So you just never know how somebody withdrawing from a competition, that's going to be somebody else's open door.
Right.
So they get a chance to go to an event where they weren't going to previously go. So I think that the real competitions for all of these skaters, Grand Prix season gives us a flavor of what they're going to be doing, gives us some insight into kind of who the contenders are and what's going on. But honestly, the national championships, because that's where those Olympic teams are decided.
Yes.
So we have to wait to see in January at U.S. Nationals what Gracie is capable of.
Yeah. Put some pressure to that moment, but if anything, she'll be more than ready for it at that point after this time off.
I sure hope so.
Good move, smart move. So let's talk about everyone's favorite, Tessa and Scott. You were mentioned the other day, in terms of ice dance and in terms of the whole field, they're not taking this challenge sitting down. They are putting their foot to the what's, when you drive a car? Pedal to the metal. That's the one. Thank you.
TTC.
That's me. But you did say that Tessa and Scott are not taking this challenge lightly.
And they never did. From the moment they came back, they realized they can't rest on their laurels.
Even sitting at the top.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And regardless of result, I will also say this, it doesn't really matter what the results are. They are among the best ice dancers to ever take the ice.
Wow, yeah.
That said, they are also my early pick for Olympic gold. They are undefeated since returning to competition. I don't think that there's anybody out there who can match them. I believe that the French team of Gabriela Papadakis and Guillaume Cizeron, two-time world champions, certainly could take them. But it would require a loss of concentration during a program for Tessa and Scott. It would require the absolute best performance that the French team can give, because they are also wonderful ice dancers. But Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer, like Jane Torval and Christopher Dean, like Tracy Wilson and Rob McCall, they are something a little bit different. So I love the fact that they take it seriously. I love the fact that take no prisoners. They just are going for it. And every competition means something to them.
And speaking of those two ice dance pairs, or couples rather, Elizabeth Cardoza-Taylor has a question for you.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Wondering what you think of them competing and training together. What are your thoughts on that?
I was just talking about this to somebody just last week about coaches and what this actually meant. Coaching is a little bit like being a parent. I have 3 children. Only 2 that I like. I'm kidding. I love all 3 of them.
Same way some coaches have 2 people they like better than others.
Your job as a coach is to absolutely bring the very best out of your student. So when you're dealing with your student, and I was a coach for a very long time, you are dealing with Jacqueline. Yes. Only Jacqueline. We're not dealing with anybody else. I'm dealing with you, what I feel I can do to bring out your best performance.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with who else I'm coaching. The other thing is, if you think about it, if coaches really could not separate themselves, and they can, and Marie-France Dubois and Patrice Lauzon, they are genius at all of this, because it's not just Tessa and Scott and Gabriela and Guillaume. They have lots of ice dance teams. What they are able to do is to assess that particular team, decide what's best for them, and then work at helping to bring the best out. If coaches could not separate their allegiance from one team to the next, they wouldn't be employed for very long.
Right.
So that's really what it comes down to. If you weren't able to be professional all the way across the board, then you're not going to stay with the stable of competitors like they have. That's for sure. So I don't think it's a problem.
And in this ultra-competitive ice dance field, where do Canadians like Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poge, as well as Piper and Paul, fall into things?
Well, Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poge should never be underestimated. This is a team who have won the Four Continents title, 2-time world medalists. And you know what? I love the fact that they are willing, again, to do what it's required in order to stay competitive. They are a team who are always looking at a fresh approach to sort of that male-female dynamic. They have great technical skills. They are beautiful on the ice and lovely off the ice.
Very lovely off the
So
ice.
from that standpoint, I'm anxious to see how they're going to be able to compete. They're going to be at Skate Canada. So I'm anxious to see what that's going to look like up close and in person.
Definitely.
Watching.
Let's move on to pairs. You know, Megan and Eric, we will see.
Oh, yeah.
What do you project for them this season?
Well, again, what I love is the fact that this is a team who took a look at last season, which was very difficult. They had won the previous 2 world titles, ended up in 7th last year. Now, that was due in some part to the fact that Eric was battling
Yes.
a pretty severe
Very
hip
tough
injury
worlds for him.
/ back injury. So it was a very tough world. They learned a lot from it. What I also appreciate is the fact that they came back home and they decided that they needed to inject some fresh blood into their coaching and choreography team. So they're working with John Zimmerman, former U.S. skater, as well as John Kerr, former outstanding ice dancer, along with his sister Sinead. And John is doing some of the choreography. They decided also to go back to a program that they used when they won the world title in 2015 from Muse. Wasn't working for them at the Autumn Classic after, again, a spectacular short program. So they decided that they, rather than abandoning that program, they decided to rework it.
Yes.
So they have reworked it so that the entry into elements, like their quad style throw, is much easier. So I'm looking forward to seeing them as well.
Perfect. Last but not least, the men. I mean, we have, of
Whoa.
course, Yuzuru, we have Nathan, we have Nam, but we haven't talked about Patrick Chan yet.
We're going to talk about Patrick Chan. So, ladies and gentlemen, just to recap, we have 2-time world champions Megan Duhamel and Eric Radford, who presumably will be at the Olympic Games. Caitlin Osmond, world silver medalist, presumably at the Olympic Games. Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer, world champions, presumably at the Olympic Games. Patrick Chan, 3-time world champion, presumably at the Olympic Games. You know, I saw David Wilson, choreographer for Patrick's programs this week. No, he didn't choreograph the programs this week. I saw David Wilson this week. He choreographed Patrick's programs. There you go. And he told me that Patrick, he was very proud of sort of the evolution of Patrick in terms of sort of his, let's say, what's inside versus the skating outside,
Gotcha.
which is always beautiful. He's very proud of his 5th place finish at Worlds, of being able to sort of hang in there, hang tough. It was not an easy season for him. He is somebody, in my estimation, I said this to him, he's always on kind of a slow rise. So I'd love to see him skate well in the Grand Prix.
Yes.
Love that. Love his new programs. Dust in the Wind for the short programs, spectacular. Hallelujah as well, which is the free.
Beautiful.
But look for him at Canadians and at the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games is where we're playing for all the marbles. That's what really counts this year. So
Yeah.
Grand Prix gives us a little bit of a taste, but February.
Definitely.
That's what counts,
Definitely.
especially in a comeback like his.
For sure. So before we go, I want to talk about the team event at the Olympics, actually, because
Yes.
you just alluded to Canada's overwhelming amount of talent heading into February. But before we get to that, we had a question from Roz Clayman asking...
Hi, Roz.
Hi, Roz. Asking, why are we not sending a lady to Russia? And Elizabeth has gone back and forth with her, and they're discussing how people do end up at whichever Grand Prix they do. And, you know, we have PJ here. We might as well get the official answer.
The official, I'm going to make it as simple as possible because it's a bit of a complicated process.
Diluted there, yeah.
But basically, there's a meeting in June with the International Skating Union, and it's quite a complicated process to figure out who's going to go to which Grand Prix events. It has something to do, so each of the hosting nations is able to send a full complement of competitors, 3 in each field. So that's why at Skate Canada or at in Rostelecom Cup, you'll see 3 Russians in each of the fields. At Canada, you'll see 3 Canadians in each of the fields. But for the remaining spots, it has to do partly with ranking at Worlds the year before, partly with sort of other factors that include making sure that the top skaters don't skate head-to-head until the Grand Prix final if they make it. So that's the reason why there wasn't a slot for a Canadian lady to go to Russia. Sometimes we have bigger teams, sometimes smaller. Sometimes the skaters are also canvassed for where they might like to compete.
Oh.
So just it's taken into consideration, although it's not the only, certainly not the only factor, but it's just if things can be accommodated, they will be.
Gotcha. There we go, Roz. I hope that answered your question. So now, before we wrap things up and get to PJ's picks for the Rostelecom Cup, let's just...
Do I remember them? Yeah, I do.
Okay, good. Let's just touch on a moment for the fact that Team Canada is in very strong contention for medal in the team event in terms of figure skating in Pyeongchang.
I believe Canada will get a medal in the team event. I just don't know which color.
Gotcha.
So, and this has been really a lot of fun to do. So the team event in Sochi was the first time that it had happened.
Yes.
And to be able to watch all those competitors come out and the strategy about who was going to skate the free, who was going to skate the short rather, and who's going to skate the free, and if the same competitor skated both the short and the free, and all of the other sort of like sort of details made it very, very interesting. Now Canada came away with a silver in the team event. I think that they could do silver or gold again, but again, it depends on the competitors, how they compete, and that's really where it sits. It depends on who gets named to the team. I love the event. I love the event. It makes it sort of on par with so many other team events. And you know what? The skaters really like it too, although it makes for a long couple of weeks of competition, because if you're in the team event and you don't skate till, I can't remember who's last this year at the Olympics, you are perhaps just doing practice in the official venue for a week and a half. So it's a bit of a commitment, but it's going to be fun.
All right.
Look for a medal. Just saying it.
You heard it here first.
Canada, maybe.
So in terms of the tone of competition this season, it's an Olympic year, as we've mentioned a couple times. Pyeongchang, happening in February.
17 weeks.
Oh my goodness, time is just flying.
I know.
How does that change the tone of competition this season in terms of what athletes are really working on? Is it those little details, or, for couples like Megan and Eric who just made some changes, is it just adjusting the best you can?
I think there are a couple of interesting things at play. I think there are some people who are opting for completely fresh and new material. Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer among them. Although in ice dance that's typical because of the changes in short dances every year. You have to for sure do a new program. For some of the single skaters, Yuzuru Hanyu among them, to see them revisit programs is something that I think is really, really smart. I mean, Yuzuru Hanyu's short program where he earned the world record score at Autumn Classic, that same short program earned him 2 back-to-back world record scores. He held the world record with this particular program. So for him to go back to a program that obviously works, I know Jeff Buttle told me that they made some changes, but that program obviously works for Hanyu. And again, for him to go back to a free program that was so successful and truly Olympic worthy, I think is a really smart thing to do. Caitlin Osmond has gone back to her some of her material as well because she's just comfortable doing it. So you want to give yourself every advantage going into the Olympic Games because, as Kurt Browning once told me, the Olympic Games, it's not the same as any other event.
No.
And you can't quite explain that to people. So I love what I'm seeing this year in skating. People are taking it seriously in a way that makes me think that they're all hungry. Love that.
So exciting.
Very.
Heather Murray, I hope that answered your question. She had perfect. See, we had read your mind before I even could read her question. You were already answering your thoughts on going back to old programs versus going to new ones. So thank you so much, Heather, for that question, and thank you, PJ.
Thank you.
This has been amazing. But before you go, we want your picks for Rostelecom Cup.
Okay, now don't forget, I am writing for CBC Sports, so you can look for my blog every week before the Grand Prix events. And okay, this is fresh because it's not even posted yet, but here are my picks. In ladies, Yevgenia Medvedeva. In men, Yuzuru Hanyu. In pairs, Yevgenia Tarasova and Vladimir Morozov. And in ice dance, Maya and Alex Shibatani. I want to know, do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm crazy? It's possible.
That's why we have a comment section. But, I mean, you are so many wonderful things, PJ. Thank you for this preview. And everyone, if you're interested in watching it, we have it on Road to the Olympic Games this weekend on Saturday, airing on television. And we'll put the broadcast and the streaming details in the comment section below. so that you can watch as much figure skating as you like this weekend, because...
All figure skating all the time.
Exactly. Thank you so much for tuning in. PJ, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Have a great weekend, everyone.